we can have a good understanding of how Islam applies to our life generally. Yeah. So there's three main sections. One is how Islam applies to you and your own relationship with yourself. The second section is how Islam applies to you and your relationship with Allah. And the third is how Islam applies to you and your relationship with the people around you. Yeah, so there's three connections, there's three relationships. It's good to be aware of this. So your connection with yourself, your connection with Allah, and your connection with the people around you. And taqwa will apply to all three of these. Yeah, and this is where Islam really gives us a lot of guidance in how to kind of live our lives. Yeah, does that make sense? Does anyone want to dispute that? Does anyone not agree with that and think maybe Islam talks about something which you've missed? I mean, I might have missed something, you can mention something else if you want. Okay, but this is it kind of covers everything. Every kind of guidance we get from Islam is covered within these three areas. So connection with yourself obviously covers looking after yourself, looking after your body, looking after your hygiene, looking after your mental health. Also that kind of means that you have to look after your spiritual health as well, which kind of overlaps into the second section. But this is kind of looking after yourself. So we've done a lot of looking at the kind of food that we eat, the exercise that we do, whether we sleep properly or not. But that's one key area where taqwa is always going to be applied. Like when it's time to decide what to eat, and there's food which we feel like eating, even though we know we're not meant to really eat it because it's not very healthy, and that's where taqwa and the awareness of Allah will come in. Yeah, when it's time to do some exercise and actually go for a walk or a jog or a run or do some press-ups, it's like hard, isn't it? You just can't be bothered. So taqwa is what's going to force you to do it. Like Allah's given you a job to look after your body. So now you're going to be able to push yourself beyond that. So that's where taqwa comes in. Same with sleeping. Like you don't feel like going to sleep. You feel like watching Netflix. So, or watching videos on YouTube. So the time you're meant to be going to sleep, you're just wasting that time. So again, taqwa can come in and say, no, you actually need to wake up on time and do something important. So taqwa can force you to go to sleep on time. And obviously taqwa at time of waking up is super powerful, because like when it's time to wake up, we just feel like snoozing and not waking up on time and just sleeping, and then just getting our phone out and then answering some messages and then watching videos, and then we've wasted like 3 hours just in bed. So taqwa will be like, no, you're not allowed to look at your phone. Get out of bed, do something useful with your life, and then maybe like you can look at your phone later or something. So taqwa, it really helps us actually control our own health, our own mental state. Yeah, so taqwa is really applied there. Taqwa is then applied to spiritual practices. Now when it comes time to connect with Allah, then the same problem comes. Like, why we can't be bothered? It's a bit boring, man. Let's just leave that out for now. So now taqwa comes in. So taqwa is how much you have an awareness of Allah. So if you have an awareness of Allah and you know that Allah has told you that it's a clever idea to pray to Him 5 times a day, then you think, okay, that's something which I need to do. It's quite important. So you'll be able to do the spiritual practices, which is not primarily praying 5 times a day. Now in order to pray properly, we need to have a certain amount of concentration. Like you need to be able to concentrate from the time. You can't just come there and start jumping up and down and then run away. There's no point to doing that. You need to actually come into a connection with Allah. So that requires doing wudu, ablution properly. Then finding like a clean place to go and pray. Then maybe taking a few breaths before you pray to make sure you actually are concentrating, and that your mind isn't going to think about all these random things which are going on in the world. And then you actually try, and maybe pre-salah you practice Surah Fatiha, so you can actually recite the Quran and the stuff you do in your prayer. You maybe do something separate so that you can actually concentrate in your prayer. Does that make sense? Maybe you'll come to this class so that you can actually practice your Quran and reciting things properly and like the way they're meant to be recited. So we're actually ready for prayer when it comes. And then like we've done in this class, we've done a lot of attention on dua and gratitude. And that's kind of all of these things, they help us connect with Allah and they help actually enhance our taqwa. Everyone got that? Yes? So that's spiritual. And when we think of Islam, we might primarily think of our connection with Allah before we think of connection with self and those around us. So some of us might just think of Islam as this. Yeah? That's quite normal. But relationships obviously have a lot to do with Islam as well. The relationship you have with your neighbor, There's a lot of guidance the Prophet ﷺ has given us there. The relationship you have with your spouse, and like how much you smile, whether you say Assalamu alaikum, whether you are grateful and actually thank people for what they do, and the relationship we have with the wider community. Like, do we contribute to the community, or do we kind of just like live off benefits kind of thing? Like, it depends what kind of person you are. But that's these are some of the key taqwa areas. So kind of even when we think about these, we realize it actually affects our whole life. The amount of consciousness you can bring of Allah, if you can bring it into every decision of your life, it'll start changing your whole life. You'll start thinking about everything you do. Start thinking about what time you wake up in the morning, what you do when you wake up in the morning. But that's kind of what we learn. But especially by doing dua and realizing, identifying the segments, we kind of got to grips with that. So that was really useful. I have any questions about that?